It's a named tweet. It's called Science Fiction Checkers. Not fact checkers, science fiction checkers. Utopias and dystopias form the worlds of the future for many sci-fi tales. Much like music and other media, they also inform real-world narratives in our mind's eye. Universal authority over the past and present, perhaps in search of utopia, may find dystopia. So, I think that Star Trek is a great, very optimistic, beautiful franchise. I was a big-time TNG fan, that's The Next Generation, with Picard, Riker, and Troy, Data, Geordi, Worf, Wesley Crusher, Dr. Crusher. I love the world of The Next Generation aboard the Enterprise and all the beautiful things that happen and the not-so-beautiful things. But basically, I just liked that we had this utopian world to look at and kind of aspire to. Like, what is the future going to look like in 400 years? Is it going to be the Dark Ages again, or is it going to be something brand new and beautiful? And they had iPads, they had everything else. It was great. Star Trek was great. Deep Space Nine made it a little bit darker, but I love that show too, with Ben Sisko and Quark and everybody else on the show. But utopias and dystopias form the worlds of the future for many sci-fi tales. Like, either the future is really dark and problematic, it's not like the same as it is right now, it's either dark or it's rather, perfect. But of course, oftentimes those utopias have an underlying darkness that, oh, how is this society so perfect when this is happening? There's always a lot of these stories end up having a utopia with a dark underbelly, which is actually kind of telling. But yes, we have these extremes. Like, it's either going to be really bad or really good. And that's not realistic. It's realistic for it to be similar to the way it is now. So much like music and other media, they also inform real-world narratives in our mind's eye. So everything is filtered. A lot of people tend to view the world through fiction. They tend to view it through the narratives and the constructs of story. They view it through a lens of a story being told. Human beings do this. We do this all the time. This is what persuasion is all about as well. A lot of it is how to craft things into a story that's understandable and relatable in order to get you or I or anybody to do something, to change, to buy a product, to tell a story. You bring people into the scene. You paint a picture in their heads. This is what persuasion's about. You paint a picture. So sci-fi tales, may they be utopian or dystopian, they paint a picture in our heads what the world should be and what we should be moving towards, what we should be going towards. And I think, in my opinion, I think some people have taken Star Trek and these stories, and because they look at they see the same kind of imagery, the same sort of people, the same sort of people in the world, the same sort of archetypes. They see them and they go, this looks just like the story that I read. They say that the people that have read 1,000 books have lived 1,000 lives. And I feel like some people, not all people, that read books. I love reading. I'm working through Dune, Frank Herbert's Dune right now. It's very good. It's taken me a long time, but it's worth every second that my eyes are on the page. But I think some people just start to view the world through the filters of the media and the entertainment that we intake. And I feel like the archetypes that we see begin to take form in the real world because our minds have been conditioned. The same neural pathways have been gone through again and again with x equals x, y equals x, x plus y equals z. It's all this sort of system, like it's a. They say that there are only like 7 stories or 11 stories. There's only 15 kinds of people in the world, or something even smaller than that. And then people just, the people that are more apt to label people and be collectivist and sort of put you into the group, regardless of, what your what's going on in your head or how you feel, but you just happen to be this archetype, or you happen to have these immutable characteristics, or maybe they're mutable. Doesn't matter. But I think that books, media, music, they of course all influence. They all assign opinions and they inform messaging going in again and again and again, even if you think it's irrational, not rational messaging. If it's, oh, this is sci-fi, this is futuristic, this is a video game, who cares? This is a cartoon. It still informs, the messaging still informs our thought process. It just does. And we have to be cognizant of that if we want to, overcome the shortcomings, the shortfalls of this stuff. But they inform the real world narratives, and the thing is, these stories are written to reflect on the current. Many of them are current, reflecting current political times, and so they say something's going to happen a certain way, and it's wise not to just go along with what some writers think is happening, because the future isn't set. It's not set. Things could change right now. They could change at any time, and then we'd be left wondering what's going on, what's happening. If we're stuck in the confirmation bias that the world should unfold as it does on Star Trek or on Battlestar Galactica or any other property. So I continue to say that universal authority over the past and present, that is to say, complete control, authoritarian control, in search of utopia, may find dystopia. Authoritarian control in search of utopia may find dystopia. Because by removing all the bad people, by censoring and depersoning and deplatforming, by putting everybody that you disagree with in a gulag, as some would say, you think you're removing all the blights of society. But what you're really doing is creating a brand new totalitarian state that anybody who disagrees will have to suffer the same fate. And I know that that's extreme thinking, that's absolute thinking. Think of this in a general context. Don't think of it as me saying deterministically it's going to happen. It's going to happen. That's not what we're talking. We're talking figuratively and impressionistically here. But I'm talking directionally true, that the more control people have, the more streamlined and whitewashed society gets, the more authoritarian it is. And that's why a lot of these writers, they actually have the thought, hey, maybe we should have this perfect, perfection is a fallacy, folks, perfect society have a dark underbelly. The yin and yang that we face so many times in this largely binary reality of ours here. So sometimes you actually create the dystopia. You create this system where a lot of the power flows to the top. It becomes centralized, like in socialism. They say that it's for the people. It's like crabs in a bucket. If they're all trying to get out at the same time, none of them can get out because they're all grabbing onto each other. But if one gets out, it then grabs a flag and says, join me. Join my party. We're a collective. But every collective, as Star Trek fans know, even the Borg needed a queen. There's always a leader that rises to the top. And then you have an authority figure to appeal to, and that's when you go to sophistry school. So I say in your search for utopia, you should probably be careful, because you may run into dystopia. Too much control, too much totalitarianism, and it is not. That is not what this country was founded on. We literally wrote a constitution of laws that guarantee freedom. Seems contradictory in some ways, but hey, it's worked out pretty well so far. Somebody had talked to me about this science fiction checkers tweet that I just broke down. My friend Leo said, this is Leo speaking, I'd guess that extreme future scenarios are often favored by writers since they provide a set of problems or bring an interesting backdrop. Though yes, a society controlling all citizens results in a lack of improvement through critique, causing corruption to flourish, rather dystopian. I respond to Leo We can only go for so long without purpose, without contrast, before cravings begin. Inertia always meets a counterforce. The extremes of sci-fi make it harder for those heavily influenced by it to find a center. A fear of dystopia, an envisioning of utopia. We manifest reality. Leo then says, I don't really see sci-fi as a distinct culprit here. We have had Plato's Republic for over 2 millennia, and it's been read either as a cautionary warning, a model utopia, or something in between. Though I agree that heavy media consumption may contribute a range of imbalances. I then finally say here, agreed. I agreed with Leo and said, as a sci-fi fan, I don't believe it is in itself causal to a relevant degree, but merely another influence. I'll be breaking down science fiction checkers on video soon, but in the meantime I do see the anxiety of why aren't we to utopia yet? Facilitating some dystopian ideals. Indeed. I said that earlier. So we'll go onward to the next tweet.